Hello, everybody, and welcome to Our Ventura. I'm your host, Annie Gabrielle, and I'm here today with not only is this wonderful woman a singer and a songwriter and a writer, but she has traveled the world with Mother Teresa of Calcutta as her friend, as her personal songwriter, and as the woman who sang at her funeral at the request of Mother Teresa. And I'm just happy to introduce Marlene T.Elias, who also happens to be my mom. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mom. I guess I'll have to call you Marlene
Yeah, we
today.
have to be professional.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Wow. Even though I know you and I was involved in all of it, it's just still hard to believe that you traveled the world with a saint.
You did.
Please fill us in.
Well, I first got to meet her through my brother, who was a priest. He was giving a retreat for Mother Teresa's nuns. He was going to go to Rome first and then go to Calcutta. So when I found out he was going, please take me with you, brother. So he called Mother Teresa, and she said, by all means, you bring your sister, and she will stay with me. What an invitation. I was shaking the whole time. When I first met her, we landed in the airport in Calcutta. I couldn't speak, and you know me.
Oh.
I could speak. And
we're talkers.
But I saw her eyes looking into my eyes. I couldn't say a word. I felt like she knew me, but she loved me. In spite of all my faults, in spite of everything, she loved me, and I still couldn't speak. And it seemed like all the noises at the airport stopped. There was just her and me. I felt her love. And as I got to know her better and saw how she worked with the poor, she thought nothing of touching the lepers. When I saw her with no gloves, embracing lepers, holding the little children that we found in trash. They were thrown in the trash, and they were still alive. Slowly, you know, I was crying. I cried every day watching her. People dying in the streets, lepers, little babies, little children, nowhere to go, no food to eat. And she saw me crying. For 3 days, I did nothing but cry. And she finally got a hold of me, and I'm short, and she's tinier than me, and she looked up into my eyes. Marlene, no more tears for these people. They have enough tears of their own. Give them your smile.
Aww.
And I said, Mother, how can I smile when I see this? She said, you can smile because that's what they need. They don't need your tears. So day by day, she taught me how to love them. Just bring them my smiles. I watched her. I watched the things she did. The children, these little orphans, they absolutely loved her. I was with her one day at the little orphanage there, little. It was, there was about 100 children there, all in iron cots. And she has the lepers make their beds, their covers for the bed, but they're iron cots, you know. So she gives the lepers something to do. And the little children, when they see her come in, the ones that can get out and run to her, one day I saw her covered with children like Velcro stuck to her. They love her so much because when she comes in, she brings that joy with her. She brings that smile. And she said, that's what I want you to do. Go back when you go. Tell the people how much bringing the love of Jesus that's in you to the people you see. See that.
That's so beautiful.
Yes.
And that was when you were inspired to write many albums. I'm going to show them right now.
Well, these are the two I dedicated to Mother Teresa. Because when I come back after I first met her, all this music came to me. And it was 2 albums filled with music. Never wrote a song in my life. Never. I mean, I sing, but I never wrote a song. And Mother Teresa inspired me to write all this music. And I was going to see her in the Bronx one time after I had written the music. And she said, Marlene, would you sing for us? Bring your music and sing for us, the songs you wrote. I said, yes, Mother. So it was wonderful. It was better than,
Carnegie Hall.
Well, she sat here. My brother, the priest, was here. And God rest Dad's soul. He was sitting next to her. And she said, okay, now sing. And she had her hands like this. And she put her hands on their hands. And I started to sing the songs I wrote. And it was a concert that I wouldn't trade for anything in this whole entire world. She was just listening with such patience, but she told me one thing: do not give me praise, give only to God. So I sang all the songs, and I saw her tapping her foot after a while. She was, and the sister said they never saw her enjoy an afternoon or a time so much as she did that day.
Well, I can remember just on the phone at the Newbury Park house, her being on speed dial. Mother Teresa on speed dial.
She was number one on my speed dial.
But then when she called and asked you to write some songs,
yes,
I went with you.
You did.
Went to the studio and I laid all the harmony tracks.
You did all the harmony.
But it was for Mother Teresa and the world, really.
Yes. And I remember one time when you went with me, you were so sick, you couldn't even walk. And you were laying on the floor at the studio. And when time came for you to do the harmony, you got up and you did it. You just did it. This was for Mother Teresa. And they turned out so beautiful. And so anyway, she picked 2 of the songs I sang that day to sing at her funeral. Am I my brother's keeper? And See Jesus. And I did. And when I was standing there singing at her funeral, I thought, here am I, a little housewife from Newbury Park, California. Who am I, And I'm singing at Mother Teresa's funeral at her request.
That's right.
And I looked out at all the people. I was ready to cry because, first of all, I was going to miss her. She was my friend, my dearest friend. And I heard her saying to me, don't give them your tears, give them your smiles. And so I gave Mother Teresa my best smile that day.
Aww.
And sang the songs that she requested at her funeral. And I thanked God that I was there.
Tell us the story about the pencil.
Oh, I love this story because she was such a humble woman. I kept hugging her. My brother kept saying, people don't just hug Mother Teresa constantly. I know. And I would just hug her. And this one day I just was praising her. I said, Mother Teresa, you are the most wonderful person. You do so much for the people. You help the poor. You tend the sick. And I said, I just can't get over all you're doing. She went like this. She didn't want me to say it. No praise for me. So she took me to her office, her little bedroom with a little desk. And she said, there was a pencil on the table. And she looked at it for a while. And she said, Marlene, what is that? I said, Mother, it's a pencil. What is it doing? Nothing. Ah, she picked it up and she said, that is me in the hand of God. I am just the pencil, the little pencil in God's hand. And she said he did everything, not her. She got her strength from God. Her humility was far beyond anyone I have seen, beside the Pope, Pope John too. They were good friends. And I got to sing at her beatification ceremonies too.
That's right.
So
at the Vatican.
Yes, and he couldn't say no to Mother, just like everyone else that she would ask for homes for the poor. Right now there's 750 homes around the entire world.
Wow. Just
for the sick and the dying and the poor. And she said she went to the Pope. She said, I'm going to ask the Pope for some bedrooms in the Vatican for my poor people. And how could he refuse Mother Teresa?
Aww.
So she was, as a matter of fact, this one day she was on her way with 2 other nuns to see the Pope about all this, all the things they were going to do to get this to happen. And she was in the car, and the driver, she screamed, stop the car! And he turned around and looked at her, and she said, stop. So she jumped out of the car, and over on the street of Rome, this was in Rome, she saw a man lying there on the street, on the pavement. And with her heart, I think she knew that he was dying, but he was just laying there. So she jumped out of the car, went over to this man, and held him. And nobody knew what she was saying. The 2 sisters that were with her were praying. And they went back to asked the man, what time is it? What time is it? They said, we can call somebody to come help this man. Mother Teresa, please, the Pope is waiting. And she didn't listen to them at all. She just was talking to this man. And finally, after 3 times, she couldn't, she had to listen to them. And she said, looked up to one sister, she said, you go to the Holy Father. Go in my place and tell the Holy Father, I am with Jesus.
Oh.
That's who this dying man was to her. This was Jesus.
She saw Jesus in everybody.
In everyone. And the one song I wrote was to see Jesus in everyone, to be him to everyone. So it could have been the king of the world. If it was the Pope, this was Jesus at a moment that he needed her. And she made time for the Pope after she was with this man. And he died in her arms.
Oh.
He died in the arms of a saint. And gosh, I have so many stories.
Oh, I know. There's so many stories to tell.
We used to call her, she picked us up in an old we called it a limo. It was a beat-up old ambulance truck. And when you sat on the seats, there were slivers.
And did she drive?
You had to be careful. No, she didn't drive. As a matter of fact, the Pope one time gave her, as a gift, he was riding in this Cadillac, and she was in Rome. He donated to the Mother Teresa. She couldn't wait till she got back to Calcutta. She sold the car and gave every penny of it to help the poor.
Aww.
So what she did was, I said, Mother, how do you do this? I know you're only 4 foot something. That's all she was. But she said, I do it with God's help. It's not me that's doing it. And she said, if you have the love, and I want to tell you a story. I told you about the man in the street. And this one is very sad to hear, but it is the essence of Mother Teresa. Do I have time to tell you this story?
Yes, you do.
Okay. She told us, I have it on tape, her voice telling us this story. She said, every day, of course, they go out, the nuns, by twos. Well, she happened to go out with 2 other nuns, and they look in the streets to see who they can help. Pick up lepers, they take them back to the hospital. Of course, the children they take back. And she said, way over in the corner of this street, she saw, it looked like a pile of rags, and she saw flies coming out of it. And she watched the people as they'd look down at that, and they'd run away. So she went over to see if there was somebody there. When she got there, it was a man, still alive, lying on the ground, filled with worms. They were eating his eyes, his nose, his ears, his mouth. He was filled with worms. She called them worms. And she said that's what they were eating him. And he was still alive. She said, quickly, sister, please go to the truck, get me a blanket. So they brought her a blanket, and when she went to lift his body to put in the blanket, half of his body was stuck to the ground.
Oh.
So she wrapped the rest of him in the blanket, held him in her arms, and took, with worms and everything, took him back to the truck and got him immediately back to the house of the destitute and dying Kolkata. And she said, sister, get me a tweezer. And she began one by one, taking every worm from this man's body. She cleaned his face, she cleaned him, and he was still alive. He hadn't spoken or uttered a word. And pretty soon, she said, she saw a teardrop come down his cheek. And in his language, Bengali, he whispered to her, why do you do this for me when I am so ugly? Why? She said, because I love you. And because God loves you. Who is this God that would love me? She said, that was the God that sent his own son. He looked uglier than you by the time they beat him and put nails in his hands and crucified him. And she said, he died so we could go to heaven. He said, I want to be with him in his language. And she spoke their language. And so she said, sister, quickly, holy water. So she blessed him with holy water, and she said, do you believe what I have told you? Yes, I do. I want to be with him. And she went to hold him, and he died in her arms, another one. But she said as she looked, she saw like a dove taking his soul up to heaven. And she told us about when she died.
Well, I'd like you to share the story about the rainbow.
Oh, yes.
You were at the military funeral, and it was
Yes.
the same week as Princess Diana.
Yes.
So everyone was watching Diana, and nobody saw the Mother Teresa funeral.
Well,
So fill us in.
a lot of people saw it, but the people there in India
Right.
were swarming all over. She was laid out in St. Thomas More Church the day before, and I happened to arrive that day, and they took me right there, the sisters, because they knew how much I loved her. And I wanted to see her once more, so they drove me to where she was lying in state. And Sister Joseph Michael come over, and she said, no crying. She told you no tears, just smiles. I said, but I can't help it. My mother, I can't hold her anymore. And I was way over there. I couldn't get in. They had soldiers guarding around her. She took my hand, and she moved the soldiers out of the way. And she took me right by Mother Teresa. And, of course, I couldn't touch her. There was glass. But I just...
She was encased in glass.
She was encased in glass. So I told her how much I loved her, and I was ready to cry. So she got me, Joseph Michael, took me over. She said, now here. She put a microphone in my hand, sing for Mother Teresa, and sing a happy song. So I sang the one, Mother Teresa, and it has a happy beat. And she said, I want you to sing it right now. So I barely could get it started, and all the sisters that were sitting there praying, they started with me because they had heard me sing it in the Bronx, and then they got copies of it, so they knew it. Aww. They were tapping their feet and clapping, and what I didn't realize was that a friend of mine had the cameras, and she was taking pictures, and when I got back to the States, back to California, and had mine developed, I looked, and there I was singing for Mother Teresa, but in front of me, and over Mother Teresa and to the altar was a rainbow inside the church. There was
captured
a
on film.
On film, I have pictures of it. And the rainbow, and he said, I had the fellow do it that's a technician. He knows how to do all these things. And he said the other part of the rainbow was on Mother's heart, and the other part was on the altar. And he said it just covered the whole area above her, this rainbow. And I have it on film.
And you wrote a song called Rainbows.
Yes, and you sang it. It's you singing it. I wrote the song, but you sang it. It's a wonderful song for children, and we just love the little children.
Well, when you give out your website, the people can actually go to it and hear snippets of some of your songs.
Yes.
You want to give that out?
Well, my website is www.motherteresaandme.com. It's MotherTeresaandme.com. Mother Teresa and Me. It is. And I do appreciate that people will be able to see and hear some of the music. There's actually 2 web videos on there also that they can watch.
That's right.
I have 2 videos about Mother Teresa, so that would be...
And you also do presentations to different groups, churches, organizations.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I've spoke about Mother since I've gotten back and first met her. Over 900 presentations around the world.
That's great.
And I just want to show people that they don't have to be Mother Teresa. They don't have to be in Calcutta. They can be right where they are, because she taught me that. And so I want to tell them in these presentations how humble she was and how we can be like her. You know, I told the little children when I speak at schools, become a grandchild to people in nursing homes, you know, in mobile homes. So I speak about it.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Well, thank you.
And
thank you for
if you want to
having me.
give out the website and your phone number again,
yes,
that'd be great.
www.motherteresaandme.com, and the phone number is 805-498-3431.
Well, thank you. This has been really a wonderful pleasure today, and to see you in our local Ventura people, hearing the wonderful words about you and all the things that have happened in our Ventura.
Yes.
And you can be anywhere and touch the world.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is Annie Gabrielle, your host for Our Ventura, and thanking our guest, Marlene T.Elias. Thank you and peace.